The sound of legal papers hitting my kitchen table still echoes in my mind. How did a simple laugh at my husband's pain end with a stack of divorce documents and my entire family taking sides against me? I thought Elliot would always forgive me. I was wrong. He's like a robot, Jill. I swear he has ice water in his veins instead of blood. I laughed into my phone, watching Elliot through the kitchen doorway as he sat hunched over his laptop, completely absorbed in some IT project. Our 7-year-old daughter Tess was trying to show him a drawing, but he just nodded absently without looking up. "Morwenna, you deserve better than that," my younger sister Jill said from the other end of the line. "When's the last time he actually talked to you? Like, really talked?" I twisted my wedding ring around my finger, thinking. I honestly can't remember. He comes home, eats dinner in silence, works on his computer, and goes to bed. Rinse and repeat. It's like living with a stranger. "That's not a marriage, that's a roommate situation," Jill scoffed. "You're only 33, Morwenna. You shouldn't have to live like this." Through the doorway, I watched Elliot finally look at Tess's drawing. He gave her a small smile and patted her head before returning to his screen. Even his affection felt mechanical. "At least Jonas listens when I talk," I said, lowering my voice even though Elliot couldn't hear me from the other room. "The guy from your office? The graphic designer? Yeah, we've been having coffee together after work sometimes. He actually asks about my day and remembers what I tell him. It's like talking to a real human being for once." Jill laughed. "Well, maybe Elliot will get the hint when you start coming home later. Sometimes men need a wake-up call." I glanced at the clock. It was already past 8, and I'd told Elliot I was working late again. The truth was, I'd spent 2 hours at the coffee shop with Jonas, talking about everything and nothing. He had this way of making me feel interesting, like my thoughts actually mattered. "I should probably go," I said. "The robot might actually notice I'm on the phone. Call me tomorrow. And Morwenna, don't let him make you feel guilty for having a friend. You deserve to be happy." After hanging up, I walked into the living room where Elliot was still typing away. Tess had given up and was coloring by herself on the floor. "Hey," I said, sitting on the arm of the couch. "Busy night?" "Just finishing up some documentation," Elliot replied without looking up. "How was work? You've been staying late a lot recently." There was something in his tone that made me defensive. "My boss has been piling on extra projects. It's not like I have a choice." "I know. I just miss having dinner together as a family." The simple statement hit me harder than it should have. Instead of feeling guilty, I felt annoyed. "Well, maybe if you actually talked during dinner instead of checking your phone, I'd be more motivated to rush home." Elliot finally looked at me, his dark eyes unreadable. "I don't check my phone during dinner." "You might as well. You're not really present anyway." He closed his laptop slowly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Forget it." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the conversation. "I'm going to take a shower." As I headed toward the bathroom, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jonas. "Miss you already. Same time tomorrow." I smiled despite myself, feeling that familiar flutter in my stomach. Jonas made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. I quickly typed back, "Can't wait." I was so focused on my phone that I didn't notice Elliot standing in the hallway behind me until I heard the soft creak of the floorboard. When I turned around, he was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Just work stuff," I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. "You know how it is." He nodded slowly, but something in his eyes had changed. "Yeah, I know how it is." That night, as I lay in bed next to my sleeping husband, I replayed my conversation with Jill. She was right. I deserved to be happy. And if Elliot couldn't give me what I needed, maybe it was time to stop waiting for him to change. I thought about Jonas and the way he looked at me when I talked, like every word I said was important. When was the last time Elliot had looked at me that way? I honestly couldn't remember. My phone buzzed quietly on the nightstand. Another message from Jonas. "Sweet dreams. beautiful. I deleted it quickly, but not before smiling in the darkness. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable pattern. I'd meet Jonas at our usual coffee shop after work, and we'd talk for hours about everything. My frustrations with Elliot, his latest design projects, books we'd read, places we wanted to travel. He was everything my husband wasn't: attentive, emotionally available, genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings. "You light up when you talk about your dreams," Jonas told me one evening as we sat in our corner booth. "It's beautiful to watch." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Elliot thinks my dreams are impractical. When I mentioned wanting to take a photography class, he just said we couldn't afford it right now. "That's because he doesn't see your potential," Jonas said, reaching across the table to touch my hand briefly. "You have an artistic soul, Morwenna. You shouldn't let anyone dim that light." His fingers were warm against my skin, and I didn't pull away. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I'd made different choices. "It's not too late to make new ones," he said softly. When I finally got home that night, it was almost 9 o'clock. Elliot was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher with the remnants of dinner for him and Tess. "Sorry I'm late again," I said, hanging up my coat. "My boss is really cracking down on deadlines." Elliot looked up from the dishes. "Which project are you working on?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "The project that's keeping you so late. What is it?" I scrambled for an answer. "It's a comprehensive audit of our filing system. Super boring administrative stuff. That's probably why he's making me stay late. Punishment for something, I guess." "Punishment for what?" I felt a flash of irritation. Since when did Elliot ask so many questions? "I don't know, Elliot. Maybe he just doesn't like me. The point is, I don't have a choice in the matter." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "That sounds frustrating." "It is frustrating, and it would be nice to come home to some support instead of an interrogation." Elliot's face fell. "I wasn't trying to interrogate you. I was just interested in your work." "Well, maybe if you'd shown interest before now, we wouldn't be in this situation." I immediately regretted the harshness of my words, but instead of apologizing, I doubled down. "I'm going to call my mum. At least she appreciates how hard I'm working." I retreated to our bedroom and dialed my mother's number. "Morwenna, honey, how are you?" Miriam's warm voice came through the phone. "Exhausted. I've been working so much overtime lately, and Elliot's being weird about it." "Weird how?" "Just asking a lot of questions, making me feel guilty for working late. I think he's jealous that I'm advancing in my career." "Well, you've always been ambitious. Remember how hard you worked in college? I'm proud of you for staying dedicated to your job." Her praise felt good, even though it was based on a lie. "Thanks, Mom. Sometimes I feel like you're the only one who gets it." After we hung up, I felt better about the deception. I wasn't technically lying. I was working on something important. Building a connection with someone who valued me was work, wasn't it? The next morning, Tess complained over breakfast that I'd missed reading her bedtime story again. "Daddy read it, but he doesn't do the voices like you do," she said, picking at her cereal. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mummy's been very busy with work, but I promise we'll read together this weekend." "You said that last weekend too," Tess mumbled. Elliot looked up from his coffee. "Maybe you could ask your boss if some of the overtime could be shifted to earlier in the day, so you could be home for dinner more often." "It doesn't work that way," I snapped. "You can't just rearrange audit schedules based on personal convenience." "I was just suggesting—" "Well, don't. You don't understand my job, so please don't try to manage it." The hurt in Elliot's eyes made my stomach clench, but I pushed the feeling away. He was being controlling, and I had every right to defend myself. That evening, Jonas and I met at a different coffee shop across town. He'd suggested the change, saying he wanted to show me a place with better atmosphere. It was dimmer, more intimate, with small tables tucked into cozy corners. "This is nice," I said, settling into the plush booth seat. "I thought you'd like it. It feels more private." As we talked, Jonas moved closer to me in the booth. When he laughed at something I said, his hand landed on my knee and stayed there. I knew I should move it, but I didn't want to. His touch sent electricity through me that I hadn't felt in years. "You know," he said, his voice low, "you shouldn't have to hide who you are. You're an incredible woman, Morwenna. You deserve someone who sees that." "I'm married," I whispered, but I didn't move away from him. "Are you, though? Really? Or are you just existing in the same space as someone who doesn't appreciate you?" His words hit me like a revelation. He was right. What Elliot and I had wasn't a real marriage. It was just two people going through the motions. When I got home that night, Elliot was sitting at the kitchen table with bank statements spread out in front of him. "Hey," I said, my heart rate spiking. "What are you doing?" "Just reviewing our monthly expenses," he said without looking up. "I noticed some charges I don't recognize." "Like what?" "Coffee shops mostly. Quite a few of them." I forced myself to stay calm. "Sometimes I grab coffee during my lunch break. Is that a problem?" "No, of course not. I was just curious about the frequency, and some of them are pretty far from your office." "I like to walk during lunch. It helps clear my head." Elliot nodded, but he didn't look convinced. "Makes sense. How much longer do you think this audit project will take?" "I don't know. A few more weeks, maybe." "Okay." He gathered up the bank statements. "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late." As he headed toward the bedroom, I realized my hands were shaking. This was getting complicated, but I wasn't ready to stop. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. Sunday dinner at Elliot's parents' house had always been a tradition, but lately, I'd been dreading it. Barbara Pierce had a way of asking questions that felt more like accusations, and Derek usually just sat there looking uncomfortable while his wife grilled me about every aspect of my life. This particular Sunday felt different from the moment we walked through the door. Barbara's greeting was cooler than usual, and Derek barely made eye contact with me. "Morwenna, dear," Barbara said as we settled around the dining table. "Elliot mentioned you've been working quite a bit of overtime lately." "Yes, it's been a busy period at the office," I replied, cutting into my roast beef. "What kind of work keeps you out so late? I thought you were an administrative assistant." The way she said administrative assistant made it sound like I cleaned toilets for a living. "I'm an office administrator, and yes, sometimes that involves complex projects that can't be finished during regular business hours." Barbara's expression remained skeptical. In my day, office work was done at the office during office hours. "Well, things have changed since your day," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Elliot shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Mum, Morwenna's boss has been giving her extra responsibilities. It's actually a good sign for her career advancement." I appreciated his attempt to defend me, but something in his tone felt forced, like he was reciting lines he'd rehearsed. "Of course," Barbara said. "I just worry about little Tess. Children need their mothers present, especially at her age." "Tess is fine," I said firmly. "She has her father." "It's not the same thing." I felt my temper rising. "Actually, it is the same thing. We're both her parents, and we're both capable of taking care of her." Derek cleared his throat. "The pot roast is delicious, honey. You've outdone yourself." It was an obvious attempt to change the subject, but Barbara wasn't finished with me yet. "I'm just saying that when Elliot was young, I made sure to be home every evening. Family dinner was sacred in our house." "Well, we can't all be perfect housewives from the 1950s, I said with a laugh that came out harsher than I intended. The table went silent. Even Tess looked up from her mashed potatoes. "I think what Morwenna means," Elliot started, but I cut him off. "I mean that times have changed. Women have careers now. We're not just sitting around waiting for our husbands to come home and tell us about their important days." Barbara's face flushed red. "I never said—" "You didn't have to say it. The implication was pretty clear." I took a sip of wine, feeling reckless. "But don't worry about me. I can handle my job, my family, and anything else that comes my way." My phone buzzed in my purse. Without thinking, I pulled it out to check the message. It was from Jonas. Thinking about our conversation today, you're amazing. I couldn't help but smile as I read it. Morwenna, Elliot said quietly, could you put your phone away? We're having dinner. It might be work, I said, typing back quickly. You're pretty amazing yourself. On a Sunday, I looked up to find everyone staring at me. It's just my sister. She's having a crisis with her boyfriend. Jill's dating someone new? Derek asked, clearly grasping for any topic that might ease the tension. Yeah, and well, let's just say he actually pays attention to her. Novel concept, right? I glanced pointedly at Elliot. Elliot's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just that some men know how to make their partners feel appreciated. I appreciate you. Do you? Because sometimes I feel like I'm invisible in my own house. The silence that followed was deafening. Tess pushed her food around her plate, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Can I be excused? She asked in a small voice. Of course, sweetheart, Barbara said gently. Why don't you go watch TV in the living room? After Tess left, Derek tried again to lighten the mood. So, Elliot, how's work going? Any interesting projects? It's fine, Elliot said, but his eyes were still fixed on me. Actually, I've been thinking about some changes. What kind of changes? I asked, suddenly alert. Just life changes. We can talk about it later. My phone buzzed again. This time I ignored it, but the damage was already done. Barbara was watching me with undisguised disapproval, and Derek looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. You know what? I said, standing up abruptly. I think we should go. I have an early morning tomorrow. Morwenna, Elliot started. No, it's fine. I can see when I'm not wanted. That's not... isn't it? I looked around the table. I work hard to support my family, and all I get is judgment and suspicion. God forbid I have a life outside of these four walls. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, leaving Elliot to make excuses and collect Tess. As I waited in the car, my phone buzzed with another message from Jonas. Hope you're having a better evening than I am. Missing you. I typed back, trust me, anywhere would be better than here. When Elliot and Tess finally came out, the ride home was silent, except for Tess asking why everyone seemed angry. Elliot told her that adults sometimes disagreed about things, but everything would be okay. I wasn't so sure about that. That night, after Tess was asleep, Elliot tried to talk to me about what had happened at dinner. My parents weren't trying to attack you, he said as we got ready for bed. My mom is just old-fashioned about family dinner. Your mom thinks I'm a terrible mother and wife. She's made that pretty clear. That's not true. Isn't it? She's been judging me since the day we got married. Nothing I do is ever good enough for precious Elliot's mother. Elliot sat on the edge of the bed, running his hands through his hair. I feel like we're fighting all the time lately. What's happening to us? For a moment, I almost told him the truth, almost explained how lonely I'd been, how Jonas made me feel valued and interesting. But then I remembered the way Elliot had questioned me about the bank statements, the way he'd asked me to put my phone away like I was a child. Maybe we're just growing apart, I said instead. Maybe that's what happens when two people want different things. What do you want, Morwenna? The question caught me off guard. I want to feel like I matter. I want to feel like my thoughts and feelings are important to someone. They are important to me. Are they? Because most of the time I feel like I'm just another item on your to-do list. Wife, check. Dinner, check. Bedtime routine, check. Elliot was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't, I said, and for the first time, I meant it. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day with Jonas at his studio apartment. We didn't do anything inappropriate, just talked and laughed and enjoyed each other's company. But being there, in his space, felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. You seem different today, he observed as we sat on his couch, sharing a bottle of wine. Different how? Sadder, but also freer, somehow. I thought about his words as I drove home that evening. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was finally freeing myself from the prison of other people's expectations. The atmosphere at home grew increasingly tense over the next few weeks. Elliot had become quieter, more withdrawn, spending even more time on his computer or finding excuses to leave the house. Part of me felt guilty about the growing distance between us, but a larger part felt justified. If he cared about our marriage, wouldn't he fight for it? Meanwhile, my relationship with Jonas was deepening. We'd graduated from coffee shops to longer meetings at his apartment, where we'd talk for hours about life, dreams, and the future. He was everything Elliot wasn't. Spontaneous, emotionally available, genuinely interested in my inner world. "You're wasted in that marriage," Jonas told me one afternoon, as we lay on his couch, my head on his shoulder. We still hadn't crossed the physical line into an actual affair, but we were dancing dangerously close to it. "I know," I whispered, "but it's complicated. There's Tess to think about. Kids are resilient, and she deserves to see her mother happy, don't you think?" His words echoed in my mind as I drove home that evening. When I walked through the door, I found Elliot in the kitchen, making dinner for himself and Tess. "Where were you?" he asked without looking up from the stove. "Work," I said automatically. "Your office called. They said you'd left at 3. My heart skipped a beat. I had errands to run. "What kind of errands?" "Jesus, Elliot, what is this? Am I not allowed to have a life?" Tess looked up from her homework at the kitchen table. "Why are you and Daddy always fighting?" "We're not fighting, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile. "We're just talking." "It sounds like fighting," she said quietly. That night, I called Jill to vent about Elliot's increasing surveillance. "He's getting suspicious," I told her, "asking questions about where I've been, checking bank statements. It's like living with a detective." "That's emotional abuse," Jill said firmly. "Controlling behavior is a huge red flag, Morwenna. He's trying to isolate you." I never thought of it that way, but you're right. And the worst part is, I think he's cheating too. "What makes you say that?" "He's been working late more often, being secretive about his phone, leaving the house at weird times. Classic cheater behavior." "Oh my God, what a hypocrite." "Right? He's probably projecting his own guilt onto me." The next day, I shared this theory with my mother during our weekly phone call. "I'm starting to think Elliot might be having an affair," I told her. "Morwenna, that's a serious accusation. What makes you think that?" "He's been acting strange, distant, secretive, and he's been questioning everything I do, which is classic projection behavior." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Have you tried talking to him about it?" "What's the point? He'd just deny it. Cheaters always deny it." "Honey, I think you might be jumping to conclusions. Elliot has always seemed devoted to you and Tess." "People change, Mum. Maybe he's not the man I married." After hanging up, I felt vindicated. If Elliot was cheating, then my friendship with Jonas was perfectly justified. I was just evening the playing field. That evening, Elliot asked to speak with me privately after Tess went to bed. "I've been thinking about our conversation the other night," he said as we sat in the living room. "About growing apart. And? I think maybe we should consider counseling." I laughed before I could stop myself. "Counseling? Seriously? Why is that funny?" "Because you think talking to some stranger is going to fix the fact that we're fundamentally incompatible." Are we incompatible? Or are we just going through a rough patch? "Elliot, when's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked me about my dreams, my fears, what I want out of life?" He was quiet for a moment. "I ask about your day." "That's not the same thing. You ask about my day like you're checking items off a list." "How was work?" "What's for dinner?" "Did you pay the electric bill?" That's not intimacy, it's logistics. I'm trying to be a good husband and father. I work hard to provide for our family. Providing isn't the same as connecting. When's the last time you told me I was beautiful? When's the last time you seemed genuinely excited to see me? Elliot looked stricken. I don't know. Exactly. And meanwhile, you're probably getting all that excitement somewhere else. What do you mean? I'm not stupid, Elliot. The late nights, the secrecy, the sudden interest in my whereabouts. You're projecting. Projecting what? Your own guilt. You're cheating, so you assume I am too. Elliot stared at me like I'd slapped him. I'm not cheating, Morwenna. I would never… Right. Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night. I'm serious. I've never even looked at another woman since we got married. Well, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe if you had looked, you'd understand what you're missing. The hurt in his eyes was so profound that I almost took the words back. Almost. Instead, I stood up. I'm going to bed. Let me know when you're ready to have an honest conversation about our marriage. The next day, I met Jonas at our usual spot and told him about the conversation. He wants to go to counselling, I said, rolling my eyes, like that's going to solve anything. Counselling only works if both people are willing to change, Jonas said. Is he willing to change? I doubt it. He thinks providing for the family is enough. He doesn't understand that I need emotional connection. You deserve so much more than that, Jonas said, taking my hand across the table. You deserve someone who sees how special you are. His thumb traced circles on my palm, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. Sometimes I think about what it would be like if I'd met you first. It's not too late to start over, he said softly. That night, Elliot told me he'd made an appointment with a lawyer. A divorce lawyer, I asked, my heart racing. No, just to understand my options. Our options. I laughed, surprising myself with how relieved I sounded. Elliot, you're not going to divorce me. You don't have the guts. What's that supposed to mean? You're too comfortable with the status quo. You like having someone to cook your dinner and do your laundry and take care of your daughter. Our daughter. Right, our daughter. Who, by the way, is going to be fine no matter what happens between us. Kids are more resilient than you think. Elliot stared at me for a long moment. I don't recognize you anymore. Maybe you never really knew me to begin with. That night, he slept on the couch. I told myself I was relieved, but lying alone in our bed, I felt a strange hollowness in my chest that I couldn't quite explain. 3 weeks later, things came to a head. Elliot had been staying at his parents' house more often, claiming he needed space to think. Tess was confused and clingy, asking constantly when Daddy was coming home. I told her he was just working through some grown-up problems, but the truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted him to come home. My relationship with Jonas had finally crossed the physical line. It happened naturally, almost inevitably, one afternoon at his apartment. Afterward, as we lay tangled in his sheets, I felt more alive than I had in years. This is how it should be, Jonas whispered, stroking my hair. This is how you should be loved. I believed him. For the first time in my marriage, I felt truly desired, truly seen. When I got home that evening, Elliot was there, which surprised me. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad, writing something down. You're home early, I said, hanging up my coat. I live here, he replied without looking up. Do you? Because you've been at your parents' house more than here lately. I've been thinking. About what? He set down his pen and looked at me. About us. About what you said the other night. Which part? About not knowing you. You're right. I don't think I do know you anymore. I felt a flicker of something. Guilt? Regret? But pushed it away. Well, maybe it's time you learned. I'd like to try, starting with where you were this afternoon. The question hit me like a slap. Excuse me. Your office said you left at lunch and didn't come back. Where were you? I had a doctor's appointment. Which doctor? Jesus, Elliot, what is this? Are you tracking my movements now? I'm trying to understand why my wife is lying to me. I'm not lying. Then which doctor? I scrambled for an answer. Dr. Peterson, gynecologist, women's health stuff. Is that specific enough for you? Elliot pulled out his phone and started typing. Dr. Peterson's office is closed on Wednesdays. My blood ran cold. How do you know that? Because I called to confirm your appointment. You what? I called. They said they haven't seen you in over a year. The room felt like it was spinning. You're checking up on me now. That's insane, Elliot. That's stalker behavior. Where were you, Morwenna? None of your damn business. You're my wife. It is my business. I laughed, high and sharp. Your wife? When's the last time you treated me like a wife instead of a roommate you occasionally have sex with? Elliot flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? You want to know where I was? I was with someone who actually gives a damn about me. Someone who listens when I talk and doesn't treat me like a household appliance. You're having an affair. It wasn't a question. I'm having a friendship with someone who values me as a person. A friendship? Yes. Do you fuck your other friends? The crude language was so unlike Elliot that it shocked me into silence for a moment. Don't be disgusting, I said finally. Answer the question. I don't have to answer anything. You lost the right to interrogate me when you turned into a cold, distant stranger. My phone buzzed on the counter. Without thinking, I picked it up and read the message from Jonas. Missing you already. Can't wait for tomorrow. I smiled before I could stop myself. Jesus Christ, Elliot said quietly. You're texting him right in front of me. So what if I am? At least someone wants to talk to me. Who is he? Someone who appreciates me. Who is he, Morwenna? Jonas Field. He's a graphic designer, he's intelligent, he's kind, and he treats me like I matter. Elliot stared at me like I was a stranger. How long? How long what? How long have you been cheating on me? I'm not cheating. I'm finding the emotional connection that's been missing from my marriage. By sleeping with another man. By connecting with another human being on a level deeper than, what's for dinner? And did you pay the bills? Elliot stood up slowly. I want you to stop seeing him. I laughed again. Or what? Or I'm filing for divorce. Go ahead. You think I'm afraid of divorce? You think I can't survive without you? What about Tess? What about her? She'll be fine. Kids adapt. And maybe she'll finally get to see what a healthy relationship looks like. With your affair partner. With someone who doesn't treat their partner like an employee. Elliot walked to the counter and picked up his keys. I'm going to my parents' house. Running away again? How mature. He stopped at the door and turned back to me. When I come back tomorrow, I want him gone from your life, completely. And if I refuse, then you'll be hearing from my lawyer. After he left, I called Jill immediately. He's threatening me with divorce, I told her. He's being completely unreasonable. That's emotional abuse, Morwenna. He's trying to control you through intimidation. Right? And the worst part is, he's acting like I'm the villain here, like I'm the one who destroyed our marriage. You didn't destroy anything. You found someone who appreciates you. That's not a crime. Exactly. If Elliot had been a better husband, I never would have needed to look elsewhere. He's probably bluffing about the divorce anyway. Men like that are all talk. That's what I think too. He's too comfortable with our life to actually blow it up. But even as I said the words, I remembered the look in Elliot's eyes when he'd left. It wasn't the look of a man who was bluffing. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of someone knocking on the front door. When I answered it, a courier handed me a thick envelope addressed from a law firm I didn't recognize. Inside were divorce papers. Elliot wasn't bluffing after all. The law office was sterile and intimidating. All glass and chrome with uncomfortable chairs designed to make you want to leave as quickly as possible. I sat across from Elliot and his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, who looked like she could eviscerate someone with her closing arguments. Mrs. Pierce, she began, opening a thick folder, my client is seeking dissolution of marriage on grounds of adultery and abandonment of family responsibilities. That's ridiculous, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I haven't abandoned anything. And as for adultery, that's a very strong word for what amounts to a friendship. Ms. Chen pulled out a stack of papers. Let's review the evidence, shall we? She spread photographs across the table. My heart sank as I recognized images of my car parked outside Jonas's apartment building, timestamps showing I'd been there during work hours, for hours at a time. These were taken over the past 6 weeks, she continued, cross-referenced with your work schedule, which shows you claimed to be working overtime on days you were actually here. How did you... Your husband has been very thorough in documenting the changes in your behavior and schedule. She pulled out more papers. Bank statements with coffee shop purchases, highlighted in yellow, ride-share receipts to Jonas's neighborhood, even my phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts to his number. Furthermore, Ms. Chen continued, we have evidence of financial misconduct. What financial misconduct? Gifts purchased for Mr. Field using marital assets, hotel bookings that your husband knew nothing about, dinner charges at restaurants you never went to with your family. I felt the walls closing in. Those are minor expenses that were hidden from your spouse and used to facilitate an extramarital relationship. Elliot spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. I also have this. He pulled out his phone and played an audio recording. It was my voice, from the family dinner at his parents' house, saying, some men know how to make their partners feel appreciated, and anywhere would be better than here. That's taken out of context, I protested. Is it? Ms. Chen asked. Because we also have testimony from multiple family members about your behavior, your public mockery of your husband, and your obvious disregard for your marriage vows. This is insane. You can't destroy a marriage based on circumstantial evidence. Mrs. Pierce, we have photographic evidence, financial records, phone logs, and recorded conversations. This isn't circumstantial. I looked at Elliot, really looked at him, for the first time in months. He wasn't the passive, withdrawn man I'd been living with. His eyes were clear and determined, and there was a strength in his posture I hadn't seen before. Elliot, I said, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers and courts. We can go to counseling, like you suggested. I suggested counseling 2 months ago, he replied calmly. You laughed at me. I wasn't ready then, but I am now. Are you? Are you ready to end your relationship with Jonas Field? The question hung in the air. I thought about Jonas, about the way he made me feel, about the life we could have together. It's not that simple, I said finally. It is that simple, Elliot said. Either you want to save our marriage or you don't. I want to save our marriage, but I also want to feel valued and appreciated. By another man. By someone, anyone. Ms. Chen cleared her throat. Perhaps we should discuss the custody arrangement. Custody? I felt panic rising in my chest. What about custody? Mr. Pierce is seeking primary custody of your daughter with supervised visitation for you. Supervised? You can't be serious. Mrs. Pierce, you've been absent from the home for significant periods, lying about your whereabouts and exposing your child to the instability of a failing marriage. I'm her mother. A mother who chose to prioritize an affair over her child's well-being. I turned to Elliot. You can't take Tess away from me. You can't. I don't want to, he said quietly, but I won't let her grow up thinking this is what marriage looks like. I won't let her think it's okay to lie and cheat and hurt people you're supposed to love. I never meant to hurt anyone. But you did. You hurt me, you hurt Tess, you hurt our families, and you did it all while convincing yourself you were the victim. Ms. Chen pulled out another document. We're prepared to offer a settlement. You can keep your car, half the savings account, and your personal belongings. Mr. Pierce keeps the house, primary custody of Tess, and his retirement accounts. That's not fair. It's more than fair, considering the circumstances. I looked around the room, feeling trapped and desperate. What if I end things with Jonas? What if I commit to counseling? Mrs. Pierce, Ms. Chen said gently, that ship has sailed. My client has made his decision. I stared at Elliot, searching his face for any sign of the man who used to love me. You really want this? You want to destroy our family? I want to protect what's left of it, he said. Tess deserves better than what we've become. And what about what I deserve? You deserve exactly what you chose, he said, standing up. You chose Jonas Field over your family. Now you get to live with that choice. As the lawyer gathered her papers, Elliot looked at me one last time. I loved you, Morwenna. I really did. But I won't compete for my own wife anymore. He walked out of the conference room, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the terrible realization that I had no one to blame but myself. 6 months later, the divorce was final. I moved into a small apartment across town, and Elliot got the house and primary custody of Tess. I see her every other weekend, and slowly, we're rebuilding our relationship. Jonas and I lasted 3 more months after the divorce papers were filed. It turns out that the excitement of an affair doesn't translate well to the reality of an actual relationship. When I was no longer the married woman he was rescuing from a loveless marriage, I became just another girlfriend with problems and baggage. I think about Elliot sometimes, about the man I was married to but never really saw. He wasn't cold or distant. He was steady and reliable and devoted. He wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was just quiet and thoughtful, processing the world differently than I did. I thought I was the victim of a bad marriage, but the truth is, I was the architect of its destruction. I chose to see problems instead of solutions, drama instead of stability, excitement instead of commitment. Elliot has started dating someone new, a kindergarten teacher named Sarah, who makes Tess laugh and brings homemade cookies to school events. When I see them together at Tess's soccer games, they look happy in a way that's simple and genuine and real. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I convinced myself I deserved better, when what I really deserved was exactly what I had: a good man who loved me, and a daughter who needed me to be better than I was. The papers on my kitchen table that day weren't just divorce documents. They were a reckoning. They were proof that actions have consequences, that lies eventually surface, and that some mistakes can't be laughed away. I laughed at Elliot's pain, and he walked away for good. It was the most